I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. You know, Trump's lawyers keep on missing their own court dates. You heard that right. Because MAGA stands for Make Attorneys Get Attorneys, Donald Trump's lawyers are under so many in criminal investigations, and they've been the defendants in a number of civil lawsuits, and they have a number of court appearances that they need to show up on as they've aided and abetted Donald Trump's criminal conduct. But we've seen this pattern now of them actually just missing court dates, like just straight up not showing up and having to suffer serious repercussions or just try to make excuses why they didn't show up. And so we've talked on another video, which I won't belabor the point here, of Rudy Giuliani in a civil case filed by his ex-wife, Judith, who sued Rudy for about $225,000, part of their private divorce settlement that he didn't pay her. And the most recent hearing last week, Rudy Giuliani just didn't show up. And so he was held in contempt. A default judgment was entered against him. And the judge, Manhattan Supreme Court Justice Katz, stated that if Rudy doesn't pay up immediately, he is going to be sent to prison. And so that was one example he gave. But of course, a lot of people mentioned this in the comments to that video, and people have DM'd me and reached out to me. They said, what about Sidney Powell? You got to reference Sidney Powell also. Yes, Trump's Let's Release the Kraken lawyer, Sidney Powell, who spread a number of election disinformation, a number meaning just completely spreading election disinformation. She had a court appearance recently before the Fulton County Special Grand Jury, where she was supposed to show up at the end of last week. Now, the Fulton County Special Grand Jury, that process has been initiated by Fani Willis. They are investigating election interference in the 2020 election within Georgia and within Fulton County. A number of subpoenas have issued there, and they've got the cooperation of people like Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, who had given testimony that people like Lindsey Graham, the radical right extremist senator from South Carolina, called on behalf of Trump to basically try to extort and threaten the Georgia Secretary of State to overturn the results of that election. One of the things we've seen over and over again is that subpoenas have issued to legislators who were part of the fake elector plan in Georgia, who submitted themselves to be these fake electors instead of what the will of the people actually selected when Georgia went to President Biden and when Donald Trump lost the state. But Sidney Powell was supposed to show up. She received a subpoena and she simply just didn't appear, like she didn't show up. And, you know, she was obviously going to be asked her efforts to undermine the 2020 election and the results of a free and fair election. You know, she was also involved in a scheme to actually tamper with the voting machines. Like, it's all projection with these MAGA extremists. You know, that was one of the big lies that they tried to accuse Democrats, and just not even just Democrats, but like even like the Republican Secretary of States of interfering or tampering with election machines, which there was never any evidence of. That didn't happen. And then what did people like Sidney Powell do? They sent out their own operatives or try to directly do it themselves, where they would like go and manipulate actual voting machines and tamper with them and really prevent the appropriate chain of custody over them. So they would have to be reset or recalibrated or just overall destroyed because of the fact that they've tried to tamper with them and when they tried to like download information from them. And so Sidney Powell had a lot to answer before this special grand jury, and she simply didn't show up. And some of the media's framed Sidney Powell not showing up as, oh, you know, maybe there was confusion over the date. BS, that's not the case. Look, she is a member of the bar. This is a very, very, very important appearance for her to be at. Everybody knew, I knew that she was supposed to show up. There were news articles that she was going to be showing up in front of the Georgia Fulton County Special Grand Jury. And so there wasn't confusion. This is not complicated stuff. Like when people receive subpoenas or notices to appear in court cases, we show up. That is part of our obligations. And if we don't show up, there are serious ramifications and repercussions to face. Yet, all of these Trump lackeys, we see it with Giuliani not showing up. We see it with Sidney Powell not showing up to her appearance before a special grand jury. We'll ultimately see what Fani Willis is going to do and what response there's going to be. We have Trump's other lawyer, Christina Bob, saying that she wasn't Trump's lawyer. This was her lawyer. This was Trump's lawyer in the Mar-a-Lago search warrant that was executed on Mar-a-Lago on August 8th. She was the one who was literally in the courtroom on his behalf and doing all the media appearances and saying, I'm Donald Trump's lawyer and here's what our strategy is. I mean, granted, she lied, and she would go, it's my understanding that there was no search warrant. It is my understanding that the FBI may have planted information. It is my understanding that I don't know if there's nuclear information or not. It is my understanding, which was always the tell that she was lying. But nonetheless, she was out there front and center as Trump's lawyer on the search warrant issue. So now she's out there saying, she's now pretending, or maybe she is, who knows, she's a reporter for this right side broadcasting network, this radical extremist network that is basically a Trump groupie network where they follow him around to his various fascist cosplay rallies, and they just interview all of the MAGA supporters who just say the most outlandish things. A lot of them are January 6th defendants, and they talk about their idolization and worship of the person who they refer to as Orange Jesus, and now she's the one who interviews them. But just at this past rally in Wilmington, North Carolina, she was out there and she was being asked by the co-anchor, if you will, what's the update on the search warrant case, right? And the update is that Trump had a huge defeat in front of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, which gave the Department of Justice the classified records back that Donald Trump stole, in which Judge Eileen Cannon tried to aid and abet basically Donald Trump in stealing these records. That was the district court judge Stooge that Donald Trump appointed. But even Christina Bob saying, I'm not his lawyer. I was never his lawyer anymore. I don't know why you would think that I was his lawyer. I'm just a reporter. It would be comical if it wasn't so dangerous. And that's one of the defining characteristics of the MAGA movement. It's not just this level of dangerous, this weird fascist cosplay, but there's this overriding incompetence that just needs to be pointed out, where they can't even get the fascism right that they're trying to achieve because they're ultimately so incompetent. That's one of the reasons why I believe that Biden just didn't call them straight up fascist. He called them semi-fascist because they're kind of clownish, cartoonish, wannabe fascists. I mean, look at what the Republicans did when they rolled out that commitment of cruelty. Well, they called it their commitment for America. And they tried to do like a hype video around it. The stock footage that they used to try to claim this is America was stock footage of Russia. And it was stock footage of Russian oil rigs. It was stock footage of Russian children. It was very easy to find that the footage that they used when they were saying, this is America. America is made up of hardworking people. The footage that they used was Russian footage. And that just, they repeat that level of incompetence over and over again. Then when they try to roll out, okay, here's what the plan is. Here's our plan, right? Their plan is make economy good, make economy better, strengthen more jobs. Like, those aren't things. It's not even coherent sentences. Like, those aren't policies. Those are just saying words, just sentences. Like, there isn't a policy. Like, their whole platform, one, they deleted and erased their whole platform and basically said, whatever Donald Trump wants us to do, we're going to do, number one. But then when they just created this, whatever they wanted to call it, their commitment for America, which again is a commitment of cruelty, because what they really want to do is take away your Social Security, raise prescription drug prices, take away Medicare, repeal the Affordable Care Act, harm veterans returning by depriving them of health benefits that they want to receive, that they need to receive, suing students for seeking loan forgiveness, controlling the bodies of women and having their governors make the choice, and arresting women and arresting their doctors with total abortion bans, banning contraception. That's what they want to do. But then they try to put their policy, like I said, of these like one sentence things, like in these, like a little tiny pamphlet that has like 8 sentences, and they're like, well, here is our policy and here is our plan. And it's like, what is that? Like, that is really one of the central things that when I try to speak to, you know, people who have went down that MAGA rabbit hole, I just try to point out the level of lack of competence, the lack of attention to anything. And that's what, again, makes it all so dangerous. And here you have these lawyers, the most basic thing, just showing up for a court appearance. And they can't even do that and deny that they're Trump's lawyer. It is completely pathetic. Hey, do me a favor. Make sure you hit the subscribe button now. We are on our way to 1 million subs. Thanks to you. Also, I get asked this all the time by people who watch these videos, and they say, Ben, how can we help grow this independent media network? And to which I respond, the best way you can help, in addition to subscribing, is going to our Patreon account at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. That's patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We have 0 outside investors. We are 100% independent because we're fueled by democracy and powered by you. And if you want to help grow this network together, go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch. There's a number of exclusive benefits there that I think that you'll enjoy with different membership tiers. Don't worry, nothing changes with this content that we're going to offer here, but that's just the way you can get involved and help. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Until next time, let's fight for democracy together.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.